Hey, James.
Yay, back to me. So here we're talking about
Woohoo.
finishing. Yeah, I know, we're all thrilled. Water and nutrition. All right. So we've kind of touched on this. Proper moisture management is paramount in this low energy Dianthus production, right? Because we do really need to get the feed on, right? But at the same time, we don't need to not constantly put the water with the feed on when we don't have active transpiration, right? Especially at lower temperatures when we're out in our minimally heated or probably no heated greenhouses, right? Depending on what style we're growing. It can lead to an opportunity for an opportunistic pathogen, right? Like Fusarium to get away into our plants. I rarely see Pythium on Dianthus, but I'm sure there are Pythiums that would take an opportunity for entry into these plants. But when I say we really want to do is keep even moisture, right? So we want to irrigate, and this is Dr. Will Healy's media moisture scale, really for plugs that we're adapting to finish. Dr. Healy, unfortunately, is no longer with us here at Ball, enjoying a nice, fruitful retirement. But I'm going to continue to use his terminology because it is so good here to really describe the level of moisture. We want to irrigate evenly to a 3.5, maybe up all the way to a 4, but we never want to go to a saturated 5, right? Especially in a cool greenhouse or no heated environment. And then we do want to irrigate, let it dry down to about a 2 or a 2.5. Right.
So just from experience growing in the Pacific Northwest, where growing in January, it's kind of like we refer to it as growing in the closet. We have almost no light, and one of the things you have to be careful not to do, and I think James made an excellent point about the low nutrition. When you're less irrigating, you got to feed more. The other thing is you can sit on the cusp of a 2 going to a 1 for 2 weeks, and the plant's not going to wilt, but it ain't going to grow. So you don't want to go, it's very easy to say, hey, look, I'm just going to let it go a little bit further drier in these really cold conditions, but you will stall the plant. So you want to stay 2 to 4, and you don't want to never go to a 1, even though the plant won't wilt, but it's just not going to move. So just keep in mind, in those lower conditions, you want enough moisture, and then also keep the nutrition up.
And look, we have a lot of plants that are very responsive to temperature and are more like the hare going to the finish line of the race. But Dianthus, think of it very much like it's the tortoise. Slow and steady is going to win this race and get you to the finish line with a very durable product for your marketplace. So we're gonna feed moderately during our bulking and our growth stage, right, and up into our forcing or finishing stage, depending on how we're growing and scheduling. And that's what I'm talking about, where we're not providing a high amount of phosphorus. We're definitely not doing something like a 12, 52, 30. That's what we're staying away from completely, right? At most, we're doing a 20, 10, 20.
No. You don't want to.
It doesn't need, you don't need it. You don't need it.
You don't need it. It's just a waste, and it's risky.
Yes.
Stick with the CalMag feeds. Stick with the CalMag feeds.
We don't need soft growth, right? The temperatures are what is going to check things. We need hard, good, consistent growth.
Yep.
All right. And of course, as your temperature is lowered, increase your feed. Finishing media, much more forgiving, right? But just keep in mind that you have a coarser mix, and those with bark, you're going to have to feed higher rates of nitrogen because of the fixation. And basically for the media, we're just trying to keep a 5.8 to a 6.3. Going also into finish in our modest temperature greenhouse here. So we're really gonna make sure that we can hit the market dates with the later flowering varieties here. We're gonna try to reduce crop time. The nights here are gonna be around your 58 to your 60 or your 15 degrees Celsius. And you're opportunistically going to catch that warm summer heat, or the warm solar heat, right? So when we do have a sunny day, the greenhouse can warm up naturally with the sun. And here's where, if you were in a forcing opportunity, right? So you're trying to hit that February holiday, or you're trying to hit that very early March. This is where you're using that supplemental lighting to add more calories to get a better flush or actually hit your Valentine's Day marketplace. And this is where, because you are forcing temperatures, now this isn't, a really dramatic night temperature, but this is more on the higher end of a Dianthus. You might need to add a little bit of PGR to counteract that, right? Because we don't want that soft, stretchy growth.
What you don't want to do is grow too warm, because they'll just stay vegetated. So you need to keep that night below 60. That's paramount.
And then here in like a cool greenhouse, right, when we're growing with our pansies and ranunculus, we're targeting night temperatures of 48 to 55, right? And if we have a flush on these, we can definitely lower our temperatures down, right? And I have some pictures of some greenhouses where they're literally holding a very finished crop. But here, this is one where, we did most of the bulking in our fall stage, and we just kept them in a moderately warm greenhouse, and we ended up hitting a very suitable product because we did all our growth on the front end in fall. And now when we're coming into that February period, we're just have our night temperatures up just significantly to where we're above, that threshold where we might have dormancy, so we can have a nice flush product. And then finally, your cold greenhouse, which would be your typical perennial style. And this could also be outdoors, or you're going into a non-heated cold frame entirely. And this is where you're really playing with that durable product that can be tolerant to freezes here. Okay.
The majority of the production in Europe is of this style, be it in the Netherlands in a drained irrigation system greenhouse with no heat and with a heating set point of like -2 or -3. Or as you can see, the picture on the left here is just a rainproof open-sided structure in Latina Italy, where Mother Nature's doing the business. And then on the right, that's in Spain, grown right outside in the field. So these things are very tough. They can take a freeze, but as you go to these very cold temperatures, it's gonna be a slower crop cycle. So for example, these Oscars here on the left in this unheated greenhouse, these were planted in week 34, 35, and now just coming to market the 1st of March. So again, that is taking it to that super cold, have been frozen a couple of times level.
All right. And then as far as your finishing guide is concerned here with your insects to be aware of, hey, it's really your fungus gnats might be, if you have a super high population, the larvae could be chewing on the roots, very similar to like where you have it in propagation. But typically we don't see populations at that high, especially as we're reducing the temperature. The fungus gnat larvae, the adults won't be moving around. And we do see a little bit of thrip action coming onto the flowers. But again, normally speaking, unless you're doing 365 production where you're trying to get a flowering indoor crop, we typically don't, in the middle of summer, mind you, typically don't see thrips as being a major issue because it's a cool season and many of the outdoor thrips haven't become active in your particular location. So it's one of those things where we're on the shoulder season, so we just typically miss major insect problems typical of our industry based on when we're growing this and what market we're trying to hit. Mites could be a minor issue and they might flare up on there if you're into, but typically I see that, and Gary sees that as well, when we have an active population, right? We have an active population on mites already. So it's not something I would preventatively spray for unless I knew that I had an issue somewhere on the property and I am in those warm summer months. And then here in your finishing, again, your Alternaria is going to be your #1 disease that you're targeting. I'm repeating myself slightly on the Fusarium being an issue as far as injury is concerned. And then I just want to call out that botrytis is less of an issue than what we would see at low temperatures from other crops. All right. And in this picture is actually from last January, where this grower had gotten a little backed up over there in Germany with his crops. And he has a 10 centimeter Oscars and he's holding them just above freezing, right? He's at 3 degrees centigrade. You know, he's just cruising right along, and he's got full color, and there's not a sign of botrytis or fallout in the whole crop. And that was quite impressive. I can't fit all those plants into one picture, but a very colorful panorama.